Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of Everything Vaguely Paranormal with myself. I'm Blake Smith, partners in the paranormal, as always, Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts. How are y'all tonight?
Woohoo! Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Yeah,
I
Happy
know.
New Year.
Let's say, why is my volume so low? Y'all sound like y'all are so far away. There we go.
No, you just turned it up in my ears too.
Well, my bad.
That's all right.
Happy New Year.
How was y'all's New Year's?
It was good. I was stuck at work, but other than that, it was all good.
What are you doing, Shelley?
Being an asshole.
Yeah, being an asshole, pretty much. So, well, speaking of New Year, new things.
Oh, I'm so glad you didn't say speaking of assholes, because I'm like, that is not the way to do this.
Well, yeah, that would have just been directly back at you. But anyways, speaking of New Year, new things, all that kind of stuff, we have taken a little addition into our
Which
little.
we were in need of.
We were very in need of into our little trio here on the podcast, who's
Blake,
going to be
When's it due?
Somewhere around the summer months, I think. It finally took. But anyways, no. We decided that we were in desperate need of someone to help push all the buttons and help us market things and all that stuff. So we have taken on a producer for 2023. Yes. So we want to just introduce her to y'all just really quick. She is going to be in the background pushing all the buttons for us and everything. Her name is Brittany. So we're going to bring Brittany onto the screen. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, Brittany.
Welcome.
We're so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We're so glad to have you.
And she is going to be pushing all the buttons, and she is going to be making sure that we see any comment necessary from you guys. Or if you have a question, she's going to make sure it gets thrown up there. We can see it so that Blake can actually focus on the podcast.
Focus on the podcast. Telling y'all a story instead of trying to run all of it by myself. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, Brittany, we're going to kick you back and do our thing.
All right. You guys have fun.
So remember, it's going to be Miss B that's in charge back there. So
That's right. That's right.
And y'all be nice.
Yeah, y'all be nice. Be very nice. All right, Ryan. Well, you have an interesting story for us. So
yeah. So
take over the reins.
So this story that we're covering tonight is one that when I was a kid, we've talked about this before, but I always checked out any book I could get as far as the paranormal goes. Anything I get my hands on, I would check out and read. And I remember going to the library in my school and checking out a book that was all about UFO encounters in the 50s and 60s. It was one of those books that was like that had one of like the indistinct like hardcovers that like was about to get discarded,
Mm-hmm.
But I remember reading it and reading about this story in the book and was just absolutely enthralled by everything that has to do with this. I mean, because I was interested, obviously interested in ghosts because that's what brought us together to do this podcast, but especially like interested in cryptids and UFOs, and this story kind of combines the two of them. And there's also a gunfight and everything else. So you're about to find out tonight about the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, where the Sutton and Langford families encountered the Hopkinsville Goblins. So
I love this case. This case interests me. Sorry, I didn't mean to like interrupt you before you got
going.
No. This case always interests me.
Yeah, this case is amazing. I think it's very interesting. It's also very well documented. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it because there's kind of a lot to talk about. So right on the Kentucky and Tennessee border, deep in Appalachia, lies Christian County, Kentucky. Now, in Christian County is the city of Hopkinsville, and in Hopkinsville is a sleepy little rural community known as Kelly, Kentucky. Now, the Langford family and the Sutton families both resided in this little town. And little did Kelly, the Langfords, the Suttons, and everyone else in that town know that on August the 21st, 1955, that town would forever be etched in the annals of paranormal history. Now, that sleepy Sunday evening in 1955 started off like any other. The Langford and Sutton families were getting together at the Sutton farmhouse. They were gathering for the first time in a long time and gathering for one of the most sacred Southern traditions, the Sunday dinner.
Hell yeah. Every Sunday.
Every Sunday, you know,
Every
everybody
Sunday.
gets together.
Barbecue. That's pretty sacred.
Mhm.
Well, I thought
Families get together for the barbecues.
he was going to say good old fashioned hoedown because that's what we're used to. But, you know, that's what it is.
That's the other sacred Southern
The
tradition,
other
good
sacred.
old-fashioned
Okay,
hoedown.
gotcha.
You know, that and a hootenanny, you know.
And a hootenanny, yeah.
So they were gathering for that Sunday dinner. Now, Glennie Langford, who was 50 years old, lived at the farmhouse. And she had previously been Glennie Sutton and inherited the farmhouse from her first husband. And I can't remember if he died or they had divorced, but either way, she had inherited that farmhouse.
Okay.
And she had since remarried and become Glennie Langford, but had since been widowed by her second husband. And she was the matriarch of both families, and she was very happy that Sunday because her whole family was going to be under one roof for the first time in a long time. And that evening, her family arrived with their wives and a couple of neighbors in tow. And in total, there were 8 adults and 3 children altogether. There was Elmer Lucky Sutton, who was 25 years old.
He wasn't
Billy
too
Ray
lucky.
Taylor.
His name was Elmer.
I
Anyway,
know,
go
right?
ahead with your story. I'm sorry.
I bet he ate glue. So there was Billy Ray Taylor, 21 years old, J.C. Sutton, 21 years old, Vera Sutton, 29 years old, and Arlene Sutton, 27 years old, Charlton Langford, who was 10, Lonnie Langford, who was 12, Mary Langford, who was 7, and 2 friends of the family, O.P. Baker, who was 30 years old, and June Taylor, who was 18 years old.
Man, these are some damn Southern names. I love it.
So there's no Eunice or Gladys or anything. But,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, they all packed into the Sutton farmhouse for a good food and a good time that Sunday evening. Well, after a while, dinner was close to being ready, and this being the 50s and a rural community and a rural farmhouse, they had no running water. There was a well on the property. So about 7 o'clock, they sent Billy Ray Taylor to the well to fetch water for dinner. And shortly thereafter, Billy came running back into the house. He was as white as a sheet. It was clear that something had startled him, and the family asked him what the hell was wrong with him. He said he had just seen something he could not explain. And as he was getting water from the well, he looked up into the sky, and what he saw was what he believed to be a flying saucer. He told the family that it, quote, looked like an egg-shaped wash tub, and it was streaking across the sky, and it had an exhaust, all the colors of the rainbow. And as he watched it, he said it suddenly stopped and descended into a gully in the woods behind the house. Now, Billy Ray had a bit of a reputation for being a joker. So the family all had a good laugh and dismissed Billy Ray. They were like, yeah, whatever. Okay, you saw a UFO.
Good old Billy Ray out there causing a hootenanny by the well.
Yeah.
They're like, Billy Ray, you've been watching that crap about Wirehouse Well. You've been listening to that lion box that you got.
He saw a double feature last Sunday at the movie house, and it was all about UFOs, so he wanted to make up something. That's what they were thinking.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but Billy Ray wasn't laughing. Billy Ray, he was kind of known as a joker. Like I said, he was kind of in on the joke. He kind of like kids, and kind of laughed when other people would, he'd tell a story and somebody believed him. But, he still wasn't laughing. He had clearly seen something, and the family didn't take him seriously, but it was a choice that they would soon regret. So they all contended. Why am I that words? So they all continued on with dinner as usual. Now, around the time that the Langfords and Suttons were sitting down for dinner, the neighbors directly behind them reported something that correlated with what Billy had seen. Between 7 and 8 p.m., the neighbors saw lights in their field behind their home. Now, the neighbors thought that maybe the Suttons' livestock had gotten out, and they just assumed it was the Suttons with flashlights trying to round them up. So rather than investigate, the neighbors just kind of went about their business and didn't really pay attention to the lights in the field.
Whenever you said lights in the field and they thought the cows got out, I go, did they have flashing cows? And I'm like, what? Sorry, that's what the image that went through my head. Sorry, I took me a hot minute.
Flashing cows.
I did. I'm like, they saw lights. Cows must have got out. I'm like, did their cows flash? What's up?
So I said they thought they could have been them with flashlights looking for the cows.
Well,
Round their thing
I
up.
was waiting for that part. It's like,
But the problem is it couldn't have been the Suttons because they had been sitting down to dinner and they were sitting there eating it during the time all this was going on. But about 45 minutes after the family sat down for supper, the dog outside began barking with an intensity the family had never heard before. This dog was going absolutely berserk. And Billy Ray and Lucky decided it would be a good idea for them to go outside and see what was going on. I mean, was it an animal or was it an intruder? They needed to find out. And at this point in the evening, it was starting to get dark. So both men walked out onto the back porch to investigate. And as they walked out onto the back porch, they saw the dog. It was barking madly at something in the woods at the back of the property. The men couldn't see what it was, but suddenly the dog yelped in fear and turned tail and bolted underneath the house to hide. The two men were confused and couldn't figure out exactly what had spooked the dog. But just then, something in the distance caught their eye. In the woods, from the direction that Billy Ray Taylor said he saw the saucer descend into the gully, two men noticed a glowing light moving through the trees. Whatever it was moving towards the house, and it was getting closer and closer. And as it got closer, they were able to make out just what was emanating this glow. The two men could not believe their eyes. This thing looked like a goblin. Now, what they saw in the center of this glow, they said was about 2.5 to 4 foot tall. They said it had a large rounded head, and it had no neck, like its head was attached to its torso. They said it had large glowing yellow eyes, spaced very far apart from each other, almost on the sides, on either side of its head. And it had disproportionately large hands with claw-like talons on the end of them. It also had large pointed ears and an upper body that seemed like it was kind of built, but its legs were kind of long and spindly. It also appeared to be wearing a metal suit that shimmered in the moonlight. The men were terrified by what they were seeing, and they didn't know what to think. But the creature continued to float towards the porch where they were watching this thing.
It looks like Bad Boy.
It kind of does look like Bad Boy.
It kind of does.
It's like Bad Boy, yeah.
Mhm.
You know, he looks like
World
it looks like
Globe or Weekly World News or whatever.
it kind of looks like a Boston Terrier.
Oh, good. A Boston Terrier. Yeah, you're about right.
But as this
Wow.
creature came towards the porch, it raised its hands in the air and put them over its head. Almost kind of like if you were to tell someone to raise your hands if you pointed a gun at them, you know? And this absolutely frightened these men because they just could not fathom exactly what it was they were looking at. So one of them grabbed a .22 off the back porch that the family kept back there. And a shot rang out as he opened up on the creature.
Very Southern.
You go on and get.
Yep.
So a shot rang out as he opened up on this creature, and much to their surprise, the shot did not injure the creature in the slightest. It only caused the strange little goblin to somersault backwards. And one of the women who was inside had heard the shot, and she ran out on the porch to see what the hell was going on. And when she came out just in time to see the creature tumble backwards and get up and run away from the shotgun blast. She and the two men watched this thing scurry into the darkness. She screamed in terror, and the men grabbed her, and they all ran inside. Now, the men were absolutely spooked. And as they ran inside with the lady, they told the rest of the family exactly what they had seen and what had happened outside. The men went around the house and locked all the doors and all the windows. And they told the children to hide underneath the beds because they didn't know what the hell was out there. They also gathered up all the guns and all the ammo in the house, armed themselves to the teeth, and waited for the terrifying creatures to return. But this time, they'd be ready for whatever came at them. And if those creatures showed up, they'd have a fight on their hands. A few minutes later, one of the creature's heads popped up in the living room window. The men opened fire, and a shot rang through the window screen. It was a direct hit. But just like before, the creature tumbled backwards, got up unfazed, and scurried off into the darkness. Now, Billy Ray, being very brave, decided to go outside to see where the creature went.
Or very stupid.
Yeah.
You pick one or the other.
Yeah.
He walked out onto the front porch to go down into the yard to see where the creature was. And as he stepped underneath the awning, a claw-like appendage swooped down from the roof and grabbed him by the hair. one of these bastards had gotten on the roof. So
One of these bastards.
and, the claw had grasped him by the hair, and the creature had Billy Ray in its clutches. But just then, one of the women acted fast, grabbed Billy Ray, and jerked him backwards into the house, pulling him away from the creature. This pissed Lucky off. So Lucky burst through the front door, holding his shotgun, spotted the offending creature on the roof, and opened fire with a shotgun blast that knocked it off. About this time, everyone noticed something peculiar about these creatures. Not only did they tumble backward when they were shot, but they also glowed brighter when they were hit. And on top of that, every time a creature was hit, it sounded like a shot hitting tin cans. They rattled like metal buckets whenever they were shot from the bird shot that was coming out of the shotguns. This confused the hell out of everyone. But they didn't have too much time to think about it. Billy Ray had run back out of the house and back into the yard to help Lucky. He yelled that he saw another creature perched in a tree in the yard. And Billy Ray and Lucky both opened up on this creature. But this creature didn't fall to the ground like the others had. It flipped backwards from the impact of the shotgun blast and floated slowly to the ground. And like the other creatures, this one scurried off. Then, the men noticed another creature sitting on a fence post. This one they shot at, it fell to the ground, hit the ground, but this time it left a glowing substance on the ground before it ran off into the night.
Oh, so like it was hit bleeding, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. They'll find they never could figure out what exactly it left on the ground. It was just a glowing substance that no one could figure out what it was.
Right.
But this one, like all the other creatures, rattled like a metal bucket or rattled like a tin can whenever it was shot too. So almost immediately, another creature came around the corner of the house and it crept up behind Lucky with its arms raised in the air. It got extremely close before Lucky noticed it, and Lucky turned around and wasted no time and shot the creature at damn near point blank range. It made the same sound like rattling tin when the blast hit it, and the creature tumbled ass over tea kettle before it got up and ran away.
It's a very southern saying for you to say, Ryan. Fitting into the story. I love it. Ass over tea kettle.
The local colloquialism.
Yes.
Right? How to include those.
Now, Lucky and Billy Ray at this point realized it'd be foolish to pursue these creatures into the darkness. And they realized, too, that their weapons didn't seem to be doing all that well against these things. So they decided it'd be best if they went back inside the house to defend the home just in case they showed back up. And Billy Ray and Lucky retreated back into the house to see if the little bastards would come back. And as an extra precaution, they turned on the porch lights so they could see them coming into the yard if they decided to show up again.
But wait, I thought they glowed.
They do, but
So they weren't going to see something glowing coming out of the woods?
Well, I think he said when they were shot. That's when they
glowed brighter.
They glowed immediately because that's what they noticed. But then when they were shot, they glowed even brighter. But I think maybe just to cover all bases so they could see the yard, they turned on both porch lights. So they could kind of see where they were coming from.
Oh no, I'd have turned I'd acted like there was a certain religious group that you don't want showing up at your door. I'd have turned off all the lights and gotten on the floor.
I think I would have
not
too.
Be named.
I'm not. I didn't say nothing. Take your pick. I don't know who comes to your door, but I know who comes to mine.
On Saturday mornings, you know who you are.
At 7:30.
So the Hopkinsville Goblins, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. About those goblins.
Would you like a religious text? No.
No.
Can we tell you about our Lord and Savior Xenu?
Welcome to 2023, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So
okay.
They decide they're going to turn on the lights so the goblins go right where they are. And
yes. They could figure out where they were. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the family didn't have long to wait, and the creatures came back. But this time, they could see them approaching the house, and weirdly enough, they would avoid the parts of the yard that were illuminated by the porch lights, almost as if they had an aversion to light. But nonetheless, they kept coming, and they would make it into the windows. They would make it up to the windows of the house. They would peer in with their big glowing eyes, and every time shots would ring out and send them tumbling backwards, and they would disappear and reappear repeating the same cycle over and over and over again for the next 4 hours. Now, by that point, the boys had emptied several boxes of shotgun shells, and they were just terrified because they didn't know how much longer they could keep these guys staved off. But about this time, they realized they were getting nowhere shooting these things, so they said, maybe we should make a break for it and try to get into town and get the hell away from these things. And they decided that they needed to go and grab the sheriff, and they needed to go grab cops, and they needed to do it fast. So around 11 p.m., when there was a break in the action, the family all hightailed it out of the house and jumped into their cars and put the pedal to the metal, all hoping they weren't being trailed by the horrifying little creatures. They drove straight to the police station in downtown Hopkinsville at lightning speed. The family all piled into the downtown police station and recounted their evening from hell to all the law enforcement that would listen. And at first, the police didn't know what to think, but this family seemed genuinely terrified at whatever was out there. And one thing that the police made sure to make note of is that none of them seemed intoxicated at all. They could tell that something had spooked these people, and the cops are trained observers. They're going to look to see if someone has been drinking, because immediately, if you come tell me little green men attacked your house, I'm going to kind of look at you sideways and say, you've been,
that seemed to sound like tin cans. They glow, and then they glow even brighter when you hit them, and suddenly they turn into Gizmo from Gremlins. Bright, and they try to get away from the light. Yeah, no. I'm like, how much have you had, sugar?
Yeah, are you doing okay?
I think they were taking acid, but
some was in Grandma's taters.
Well, and that's the thing, is they did not seem intoxicated. They weren't drunk whatsoever, and the cops were pretty certain about that.
Definitely weren't drunk.
Yeah, the kids weren't drunk.
Definitely weren't.
Exactly, so. And the cops were not. They were pretty sure that they weren't drunk. Plus, the city desk sergeant was sympathetic to their story because earlier in the year, he had seen a UFO that scared the wits out of him. And the sheriff who was standing there had also, earlier in the year, seen a UFO that he said was bright, and the object was hovered for 30 to 40 minutes and took off at a high rate of speed. So you have two people who had previously had UFO encounters in law enforcement in the community that are listening to these people's story and taking it very seriously.
Which is always
sounds familiar.
Yeah, which is always a bigger deal for me when it is somebody of the stature of law enforcement or pilots, even, some pilots as well. People who have
more to lose.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's what I was just about to say. They have more to lose. So that holds a little weight, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So out of curiosity and sympathy for what happened to the Suttons, the law enforcement, all the law enforcement decided it was a good idea to go out there to the farm to go check out and see exactly what had happened. So the police put a report out on the radio about going out to the farm and going to go investigate and start heading towards the farm. Now, the dispatch was picked up at nearby Air Force Base Fort Campbell. So in addition to the 16 police officers responding to the call, they were joined by 4 MPs headed out to the farm.
Okay.
While on the way to the farm, one of the officers claimed that he saw something in the sky. He claimed that he saw, quote, 2 meteors pass directly overhead in going the opposite direction from the Sutton farm, and said they were very loud and looked like artillery fire, which I find quite interesting that they're going out there to see what this was. And Billy Ray Taylor he describes something that looked like a meteor landing at the back of the farm. And now the cops are on the way out there and they see something leaving the farm that looks like a meteor. I think that's kind of interesting. So anyway, the cops make it out to the farm and they searched it thoroughly. Now, the atmosphere on the farm and out there in the woods was pretty heavy and tense, and it was almost as if something could show up at any moment. And at one point during the search, an officer accidentally stepped on a cat's tail, and the cat let out the most awful noise you ever heard, and it caused the already jumpy police officers to unholster their guns and all point guns at the cat because they didn't know what the hell it was.
This poor cat.
Poor kitty.
But after they realized what it was, they all had a laugh and just realized it was just an angry kitty and kind of went back to searching everything. So the police found the luminous spot on the grass from the creature that was sitting on the fence post, but they couldn't determine exactly what the substance was. And another officer claimed to see a green glow in the woods, but it was determined that the green glow in the woods was foxfire. You know what foxfire is? Do y'all know what it is?
So
Oh,
like
yeah.
swamp
It's
gas?
no, isn't it like a fungus?
Yeah, it's like a luminous.
Yeah.
Like it's you ever seen like a? It's like a stone.
Is it like a bioluminescence algae?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so to
like a
speak. Yeah.
like glowing green.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so one of the cops, so they saw the glowing in the woods and they were like, oh, that's just foxfire. They recognized it as foxfire and they didn't go into the woods and investigate any further as far as that goes. But during the search of the property, the cops found shotgun shells and evidence of the gunfight. Clearly something had spooked these people enough to shoot the windows full of holes in their home. The cops continued to search and didn't find anything. And the family had come back to the property at this point, but they refused to re-enter the home unless the cops searched it thoroughly. The cops obliged and searched the home, found no trace of the creatures, and realized it was getting late because by about this time it was 2 a.m. and they decided to call it a night. So the family reluctantly decided they were going to go inside and call it a night as well and go settle down, but they were still kind of jittery when they went inside to settle
Gotta be a
down.
little jumpy too.
Yeah.
Now, the family goes and lays down, and no one went home that night. Everyone was staying at the house because if these things happen to come back, we kind of safety in numbers.
Yeah.
So everyone settles into their sleeping arrangements to get some shut eye, and all was quiet until about 3:30 in the morning. Suddenly, Miss Langford woke up with her room being illuminated in a yellow light. She looked out the window at the foot of her bed, and she almost had to do a double take. What she saw was one of those creatures standing at her window with the yellow glow coming from its eyes, lighting up her room, and its claw-like hands were pressed against her window. Miss Langford screamed and called out for her sons in terror, and Lucky ran into the room, shotgun in hand, and yelled, "Mama, I'm going to shoot that little man," and shot through the window, nailing the creature.
Mama, I'm going to shoot that little man.
Thus, another gunfight ensued for the rest of the night. And the last one of these creatures to be spotted was spotted shortly about 5 o'clock in the morning. After the sun came up, the creatures were no longer seen. And early the next morning, the cops came back out to investigate further to see if they could find any kind of physical evidence that something had been at the farm. And besides a few additional shotgun shells, they didn't find anything, so they packed it in and went back to town.
No footprints, no nothing.
No, nothing. They couldn't find anything.
Not even any more of that little green pea, because the one that got scared and pissed on the fence post.
No.
Because that's what I thought was like you scared him and you did like one of those submissive doggies that you did. It's like, oops, I made an accident.
I know you did not just say little green pea.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought of. Was like it scared him and he peed on the fence post. So that's what I was thinking.
I go to getting shot and like bleeding out type stuff.
Yeah.
Shelly's over here thinking he just pissed himself.
But
I mean,
but
it's a good
Ryder
point.
said that they'd been hit numerous times and that
Yeah,
they didn't
that's what I'm saying.
bleed.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm saying he must have gone, "Ooh, that scared me."
Well, no, listen, I'm just saying. I find
he
it
could
funny
have.
because I'm a little mad that I didn't think of little green pea first. That's damn good.
I mean, it wouldn't be blood because we'd already heard that they'd been hit with shotguns and they didn't bleed. But
Sure.
he looked kind of frightened. One of them, he said, "Oh, she's like, oh, I had an accident."
Whoops.
Little alien piddle on the
True.
post.
I mean, I think by that point it had faded. I mean, it was the morning and you couldn't see it. So I don't know. I mean, it could have been pee. It could have been blood. It could have been, he could have shit himself. You never know. I mean, nobody knows what it was because they couldn't determine. So I don't even think the cops took a sample from anything I found. They didn't take a sample. And I don't think they even thought to at that particular moment in time, because this is the 50s and, I mean, what do they have to compare it with?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they just kind of let it be. But anyway, the next morning, the news of the sighting had gotten out, and the town was abuzz about the sightings of the strange little men out on the Sutton property. And this was the atmosphere that Bud Ledwith walked into at the local radio station, WHOP, that morning. Now, Bud was an engineer and a part-time announcer at the station. He was off that day, but he decided to stop by and talk to a few people at the station for whatever reason. But when he got there, he got an earful about what had happened the previous night out at the Sutton farm. So he decided right then and there that he wanted to go speak to these people and see just what it was that they saw. So he drove directly out to the Sutton place to interview them. because Bud, in addition to being an engineer and a part-time announcer, he was also an amateur sketch artist. And so he brought his pad and paper with him. And when he got out to the farm, Mrs. Langford was sitting on the front porch. So he walks up to the house, and only she and the other women from the family were there. I believe that the men had gone across the line into Indiana to go to work that morning, and they weren't around the house, so he just interviewed the women at the house. And he sat down with them and asked them about the events of the previous night, and the women told him a detailed account of exactly what had happened. Bud asked them to go into great detail about what the creatures looked like. They described what it was, and Bud sketched. And Bud said they were so matter-of-fact about what they saw. He said that if he even slightly deviated from their description of the creatures, they were quick to correct him. And after Bud completed his sketch, he showed it to Miss Langford, and she said it was so much like what she had seen, she did not even want to look at it. And this is where we get the famous pictures of the Hopkinsville Goblins, and that's what Bud sketched that afternoon. So,
and both of these that I had put up earlier, they're both from him, correct?
Yeah, Bud Led was sketched both of those.
Gotcha.
Now, something I didn't have in my notes, but I will tell you that's kind of interesting. If you look at the one doesn't have a nose, and then the other one does have a nose. Now, most of the people said that it didn't have a nose, but I think it was either Lucky or it was Billy Ray that said it had a nose, and then later on retracted his statement about it having a nose. But they all kind of genuinely look like this, the little dude with little ears.
I just figured out what it looks like to me.
What?
It's Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. That's what they based Stitch
does.
on.
Oh my God, it is.
That is what they based
Stop
Stitch on.
it.
It's the Hopkinsville Goblin.
It's the Hopkinsville Goblin.
No, the one without the nose. Go back to the one without.
Yeah,
that is
one.
The one that looks like Stitch from the Disney thing, Lilo and Stitch. There you go. So that's where somebody's inspiration came from, whether they realized it or
had
not.
to.
I'm gonna say in the comments we had one earlier that said what they really saw was Yoda. So
well, now the other one does kind of look like Yoda. Go back to the other one with the bat-like ears. Yeah, I would get Yoda from that one.
Maybe that's where maybe that's where George Lucas got his inspiration from. Was the
who knows?
Hopkinsville Goblin case.
But that's the thing though too, is like, but look at how consistent the two besides for the nose, that both of the drawings are very consistent about what they saw.
Yeah, the facial structure is different. One is round and one is kind of more of an egg shape with the point at the bottom. But other than that, the descriptions are incredibly similar. And who knows if they were, like all three of us look different, but we're the same creatures, So,
too, but all three of us could see a golden retriever on the street, right? And if someone asked us to describe what we saw, all three of us would hone in on something different.
Right.
But like the general structure of what we saw would be the same. We describe a dog and have the consistent descriptions of a dog, but someone might say, well, I saw a collar. Well, you might not see a collar on the dog. You know what I mean? Like, it just depends on who you're talking to about what people have seen. But those two drawings are very consistent with what everybody saw. But that evening, the local newspaper had picked up the story, and the story soon began to become a national sensation. Even the New York Times picked it up and reported on it. And everyone who read the story was clamoring to know more about what had happened. And soon people from all over began to show up to the Sutton farm uninvited. Now, strangers began poking around every bit of the property, and the Sutton family did not take too kindly to this. This was their home, and they didn't want these people on their land. So they went and told the cops. They were like, hey, could you please get these people off of our property? We don't want all these people out there. But the cops really didn't do anything, and they kind of couldn't do anything because there was too many people to arrest or to kind of throw off the property. So Lucky goes outside and he tries to shoo the crowds off and tries to get them to leave the land, and nobody's going to listen to him. So the family eventually puts up a posted sign to keep people away. Well, that doesn't work either. So because it didn't work, the family decided to finally put up signs and began to charge admission to get onto their land.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Smart. Freaking smart.
We're getting a new house, baby.
We're gonna get that outhouse like we've been wanting, baby. You just sit there and you just wait, honey.
And we're gonna have a barbecue to celebrate.
There's gonna be a half moon carved in the door of that outhouse. You just wait and see. So they started charging money, and people would still come out there, and it was more of a deterrent than anything, to kind of keep people off of their land. It wasn't really anything where they were making much money, but
Right.
eventually the excitement died down and everyone went back to their lives and the crowd stopped coming and the Sutton family faded into the history books. But none of those people ever forgot what they saw that night. Now, you have the Sutton story. Now we're going to kind of get into a little bit of what skeptics have to say about this. And this is going to get really interesting, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
And the Sutton family went on to star in a show called Yellowstone. And no, I'm just kidding. That's totally bullshit. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Ryan.
So, did the Suttons actually encounter beings from outer space, or was it something else? A lot of skeptics seem to think that the whole encounter was faked. However, the family were known as good, hardworking, no-nonsense individuals. Also, their retellings of the story all consistently lined up every single time they told the story. None of them ever deviated from what happened that night. And on top of that, their descriptions of the creatures have always remained consistent. Now, did they profit from charging admission for people to get on their property? Possibly, but it was more of a deterrent than anything else to keep people away.
It wasn't like they had it set up ready to go whenever the people started showing up. They didn't have it set, okay, come on in. It's, it wasn't a Barnum and Bailey kind of deal. They had to do that to get people to quit coming out there. Okay.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that a lot of skeptics say. They're like, oh, well, they profited off of what happened. So that's where they try to make it seem like they didn't actually have an encounter, because
other than that, did they do anything else with their story?
No,
other than it being picked up in the newspapers and
they've never sold. It was just something that happened to them. It was a story that was passed down from generation to generation in the family, and it was just picked up by the newspaper.
That just
go ahead.
I was going to say that always lends a little bit of credibility to me. If it's not for, yes, they charge to come on the land, but as we've said, that's a deterrent. If they're not trying to make money from it and make a profit from it, to make their lives better from it monetarily, that holds a little bit of credibility more with me. So, okay.
I'm going to tell you something interesting that I saw on those newspapers put up. One of them was from Nevada.
Uh-huh.
I did notice that.
Yep.
The Nevada State, Nevada State Journal. So why would Nevada be reporting on Kentucky unless there was potentially something to it? Nevada would have been the Nevada State. That wouldn't have been, that would have carried things like presidential stuff, but for the most part, it would probably cover most of just Nevada, perhaps some California, Utah, New Mexico news. But they're pulling it from all the way up here.
In Kentucky, yeah.
Now, something else I wanted to point out, I forgot to mention earlier. If you look at that paper headline, it says Little Green Men. This is where we get the little green men stereotype from in the papers, is from this case. Now, the funny thing is the Suttons never said they were green at all. And there was a newspaper, I believe in Indiana or Kentucky, that picked it up. And either one of those papers, they're the ones that first said little green men. The Suttons never said these things were green. So that's where that trope comes from, the little green men that, you're seeing little green men. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But so another reason skeptics also think that it was a hoax was because Billy Ray and Lucky both worked for a traveling circus. So skeptics think that they knew how to put on a show, and therefore Lucky and Billy Ray concocted the story to drum up attention and to make some quick cash. But this isn't likely because 9 other people saw the same thing that they did, and everyone's story is airtight. And do you know how hard it is to get 10 different people to tell the same lie? So
you just told me something I didn't know.
Same here.
Lucky and Billy Ray worked for a traveling circus. Now, I must tell you, that makes me kind of go, wait a minute, because I just said just a second ago it wasn't a Barnum and Bailey
thing. Yep.
But now I might be reconsidering that. Continue on. I'm going to let that stew for a second.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Wow.
So, but like I was saying, is everyone's story, like everybody's story, even down to the kids that were there, all their stories have remained airtight. Everybody has the same story. nobody has, once again, like nobody has deviated from the story anytime they've ever told the story about that night.
That doesn't mean that he didn't have access to performers that he could have had come and do this.
I mean, but you're shooting someone with a damn shotgun and 22s. I don't know.
They're the only two that are shooting.
Yes.
So I mean, the thing is of course everybody's story is going to be airtight and the same if the only two people who are shooting
are the two that work for the circus that have access to the performers.
Yep.
I mean,
just finish my thought, Shelly. God, just take it right out of my head.
Sorry,
Thanks.
I'm with you.
God, no, I'm just kidding.
Mind melding right here. I'm right here with you.
But that's my whole thing. I mean, stories are obviously going to be airtight if two people who work for the circus are in on it together and have access to performers, and they frighten the others enough that make them believe.
That's also but that's also what I'm saying too is, when it came to the charging admission later on down the line, it was a deterrent because they didn't want anybody out there.
Or was it they just went, oh, wait, you know what? We
is
make
this
some
our
money
new
off
circus?
This.
Well, no, because they went to the cops first to ask the cops to get people the fuck off their land.
You have to legitimize it, though.
Yeah, I mean,
right. Hey, Shelly, Ryan wants it to be goblins. Leave him alone, okay?
Well, you know what? Quit arguing with it. Tell me the next part of your story. See, yeah. Different fact.
I was gonna say, let's keep going. Yeah.
Now, many skeptics also argue that what Billy Ray saw in the sky that night was a meteor, and that part is entirely possible. There were meteor showers in the sky that evening, so he could have seen a very intense meteor. But the meteors do not stop midair, and they don't descend into gullies behind houses. And it also doesn't explain their encounter with the creatures. So,
but again, the only person who saw it descend into was
Billy Ray. But the creatures are something completely different.
Oh, his poor heart, his achy breaky heart. I'll stop with the damn puns tonight.
I just don't think he understands.
I don't think he does either.
So many skeptics also argue that alcohol could have been a key factor in this incident. While it is a possibility, it's not very likely, because Miss Langford was very against alcohol. She did not allow it in her home in the slightest. The family was around each other all evening, and no one had time to sneak any drinks. And plus, everyone, including the children, saw these creatures. The whole family could not have been drinking. When the family went to the police station for help, the police did not notice any signs of intoxication whatsoever. And the police are trained observers, and they would have noticed if they had seen any. They would have noticed any signs of drinking. Also, when the cops searched the property and home, they did not find a single drop of alcohol anywhere on the property. So, alcohol was most likely not a factor.
Okay. I just thought of something though. Okay. So is this a self-sustaining farming family?
For as far as I know, yeah.
Okay, because that's all that I've ever heard. So could it be because we know they've already reported on like foxfire being in the woods and stuff like that. So if they're a self-sustaining farming family, I mean, could there have been something legit like Shelly said earlier, jokingly that something was in the mashed taters, but I mean, could there legitimately have been?
I mean, there could have been. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I've never come across anything that.
But the only thing that kind of opens more doors for me, and that's why I'm kind of like, on that is I don't know if I've ever heard of mass hallucinations,
but there have been.
I mean, I'm not. Yeah. I'm sure that there have, but I'm talking about like to this caliber where people are experiencing like gunfire action together. You know what I mean? And like seeing the exact same movements. The way it is, I can understand mass hallucinations, stuff like that. But I don't know. It was just a thought that popped in.
It's a very interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that, but that's could definitely be a possibility. But there were no signs. But that's something too. The cops would have noticed that as well because they would have had signs of some sort of intoxication, or the cops would have noticed that they were on something if they were not acting right.
True.
But remember, they waited for a break to go, which means that might have been the time, and again, you hit on it, Blake, self-sustaining farm. Did that mean that perhaps there was mushrooms in the gravy and this might have picked a wrong mushroom and now we've all seen something, and once it begins to wear off, we don't see him anymore, everybody run for the damn car.
Okay. This is where I'll argue against.
I'm sorry. Before you say that, hold on. We just had that said in the comments. They picked the wrong mushrooms.
Oh, really?
Go ahead.
Well, see, and I can't see the comments. So great mind.
This is where I'll argue against you on this, because these people lived in this farmhouse for God knows how long. They know the land. They're also avid hunters as well. They know the land. They've been in the woods. They've walked the land. I think that they would know not to pick random ass mushrooms and put it in their stuff.
Unless
I'll
the
give- I'll
8-year-old
give you
doesn't
that.
pick it that day. Here,
No,
help.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that because even an 8-year-old's going to be supervised. If a person who's such an avid farmer knows the land so well and all that stuff is going to the woods to pick mushrooms, knowing that there could be a dangerous one that the kid could pick, the kid is going to be supervised. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be. So I will give you that, Ryan. Yeah.
So on top of that, one of the most pervasive theories about the encounter is that the creatures were actually great horned owls. Many skeptics lean very heavily on this theory. The reason being that the creatures had similar features to great horned owls. They had big, bright yellow eyes, pointed ears similar to the tufts of feathers on the great horned owl, and big talons. Now, this isn't very likely because the last I checked, the owls don't glow. They also don't wear metal suits that shimmer in the moonlight, and owls are not bulletproof and don't rattle like tin when they get shot.
And that owl's legs aren't that long.
No. And if they were owls, they would have been destroyed by the gun blast. Plus, there'd have been feathers everywhere from the owls being blasted out to oblivion
And
from
there'd
the
have been
fucking
blood.
from the guns. Yeah,
Yeah.
There would have been.
But I will say, actually, owls' legs are very tall. They're longer.
they are
than
very
you think.
tall once you pick them up. But
Once you
I mean,
pick them up.
but once again, these people are also people of the land here. They know what they've seen an owl. They know what a horned owl looks like versus whatever the hell these things were. I don't think that theory holds any water.
Now, the owl to me is most likely the least likely theory
Yeah,
to me
yeah.
because, again, these people know what an owl looks like.
Exactly.
I mean, come on. And most owls tend to fly, not walk at you. And
Yeah.
their,
They don't
their
float.
wings up on the window like, hello. You know,
Yeah.
no.
And they don't glow.
Yeah,
So-
I would definitely toss that one out. I don't remember if I mean, how you get reflection, like, with cat eyes or our eyes, even in some of our paranormal investigation photos where they're red eye and all that stuff. I don't know if owls do that at night when it gets hit by certain light, if it's reflective of some sort.
Because, I mean, they're able to
I
see
would
at night,
think
so are cats, and cats'
I was gonna
eyes
say,
reflect.
I would think that they would.
It's a possibility, but
I've
you
never
notice as well
studied
as I
owls,
do.
so I don't know.
But you know as well as like eye shine from an animal is not going to illuminate said animal.
Well, and also, do these owls travel in packs? Because they weren't reporting one;
Yeah,
they were
that's
reporting
true.
numerous.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
being that owls are prey birds, and
that's the thing too.
Hunt at night. Do they hunt in packs? I don't.
No,
And-
owls
think
are
so.
very stealthy and they tend to keep to themselves and they don't
Solitary?
really come after people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another great thing about owls in the comments is owls don't have abs.
It's true. They don't.
Owls do not have abs,
Yeah.
which is such a good point. Like, for
Good
real.
point. Whoever that is, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. But I will go back real quick. Sorry, I don't mean to jump if you have more
Oh,
theories.
I have one last theory for you.
Well, let's
Okay,
go.
go for it.
Let's
Go
hear
for it,
Let's
and
hear
then we will discuss this case. a little
Now,
bit.
this one I find to be one of the most ridiculous theories that what the creatures were. Some skeptics
Jesus.
think that the creatures were actually monkeys. They think so. This is one of the skeptic theories.
Wait,
there
so
was a
suddenly
traveling-
there are monkeys in Kentucky? Where did
Well-
you said monkeys come from?
Well, they're
So-
the
I've never seen a monkey in
circus.
Kentucky.
Well, skeptics say that there was a traveling circus going through the area. That
Yeah, circus.
not the one that Lucky and Billy Ray worked for. This is a different traveling circus. And trainers from the traveling circus had gotten separated from their motorcade and they pulled over to the side of the road to have a break or whatever and let the monkeys get out and get some exercise. The monkeys escaped and ran off into the woods, and that's what terrified the Suttons and terrorized them that night on their farm. But this also assumes that the Suttons didn't know what the hell monkeys look like, which I think is ridiculous because everybody
Being
knows
that
what a
one of
monkey
them
looks
worked
like.
for two of them worked for a traveling circus.
Yes.
They probably knew what a monkey looked
Mhm.
like.
And
yeah, monkeys
also-
don't glow.
Like the owls, monkeys don't glow. Exactly. So this is what I think. I'll sum this up in what I think about it, and then we'll discuss because I want to know what you guys think about it. I
Okay.
think a lot of the explanations boil down to classism because a lot of them assume that the Suttons were a bunch of drunk hillbillies, and they also assume that the Suttons were stupid and shysters when there is no evidence to suggest any of that. I think something definitely happened to these people, and that they can't that these people just cannot explain. They were also horrified and then ridiculed for what they had to endure. Whatever it was not of this world. What do y'all think?
So
Because-
Go first.
you think it's not of this world.
I think I don't think this of this world. No, because I think that, like I said, these people, not only were they terrified and did they have to endure whatever the hell was on their property, after the fact, they were ridiculed because of what they saw. And people just assumed, like I said, they assumed they were just a bunch of drunk hillbillies, because a lot of people were like, oh, well, the only aliens they ever saw was in the bottom of a bottle. You know, that was a quote that I kept coming across. And, you know, I think that whatever it was, it's, you know what? I'll take that back. I won't say maybe it's not of this world. Maybe it is of this world, but it's something that we don't know what they are. Because
good point.
Which I'm sure we'll kind of get into it. Do it. The cave system, exactly.
Cave system. Yep.
This is in the middle of Appalachia. And if you guys have ever seen the Hellier documentary, there is a series of caves that run under the Appalachian Mountains, North Carolina, Tennessee, West Virginia, parts of Georgia, that whole area.
Yep.
And if you look at a lot of these cryptid sightings and a lot of UFO flaps that happen in this particular area of the country, they all seem to coincide with this mammoth cave system that runs underneath where all these states meet.
Yep.
So if they are from somewhere else, that's a possibility, or they could be from
they could be southern subterranean.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. They could be from our realm, but just live places, but we've never encountered these things, and we don't know where the hell they're coming from. Because, you know, if Billy Ray Taylor saw a meteor, that explains the UFO sighting that he saw. But on top of that, that does not explain the creatures. And if these creatures somehow emerged from wherever the hell they live and decided to kind of just walk onto their property and see what the hell was going on with these people or whatever, I don't know. I think that they maybe have come from within the earth, basically.
I'm not gonna lie, that was a theory that I had tossed around in my head too, that it's maybe not something that's out of this world, but that it is of this world, that it is subterranean of some sorts, because, you know, I know the cave system that's around in that area. We've talked about that before. It's not just these goblins. We've talked about it with Bigfoot, with Mothman, with all other types of cryptids that are out there. I think, all joking aside, I know we're having fun with that, but here's my thinking on it, on why it lends a little bit of credibility to what this family has experienced. Number one is, as you said, you have a lot of individuals who are it's basically seeing and experiencing the exact same thing with the exact same detail and the exact same storyline. That's pretty credible to me, including children, and that they've maintained and held on to that story. They did not try to go public with it and make money off of it, make a name for themselves of any way whatsoever, other than to deter people coming onto their property. They immediately went straight to the police as soon as they had a break in the gunfight, got the police involved, which also got the military involved. They themselves, plus the police and the military, all say that there was some kind of bioluminescent fluid or liquid or something that was on the ground after this thing had been shot. So all of that adds a lot of credibility to this case, because like I said earlier, when you are adding in military personnel, police officers, and things like that, who have a lot to lose, especially in 1955, by coming forward and saying, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced, and I don't believe it to be of human or of this world, that's a lot of credibility. Now, my only question is we are, what, 8 years maybe or so after like this UFO craze kind of starts. Didn't it start about
1947 or 49? I can't remember when Kenneth Arnold saw
was Roswell, and the space craze was on after that. And it lasted well until we put a man on the moon, allegedly.
Yeah. Allegedly. Oh, God.
We'll talk about that another time.
So, I don't know. We have spoken about this little time frame in the country's history, where it just seems like, my God, everywhere there was a freaking UFO during, I would almost say, like a 20-year span, I guess, or something, from the time about 1947 to, I'd give it about a 30-year span, 1977, somewhere in there. There was just all these crazy freaking stories. And in that time, you also have the story of Mothman. You have an increase
Flatwoods Monster.
Yep. You have an increase, the Alabama Metal Man. The
abductions on the Pascagoula River.
Pascagoula River aliens. I mean, you have all of this stuff that's coming forward at this time. Why can't this one be just right along with those? I think the story has some credibility. My belief is I don't believe it is out of this world. I'm with you, Ryan. I believe it is of this world. And knowing the area where it's at and what we've spoken about in the past with the cave system, I think they're subterranean. I think it's because just as the ocean has only been explored so much percentage, we still don't know everything that's out there. I feel like the same thing can be said about below the surface of the earth. Who the hell knows what's underneath there?
And there are numerous stories of people who go in spelunking in cave systems, coming across things that they didn't think existed and being scared out of their fucking mind to try to get the hell away from whatever they were. Now, also, let's kind of reel it back to Hellier again, because if you've seen the documentary Hellier, the whole documentary starts off with creatures that kind of match the description of what the Suttons and the Langfords saw. There's a guy who emails Greg and Dana Newkirk because he lives in rural Kentucky, in the town of Hellier, Kentucky, and both him and his family were being terrorized by these little creatures that match the descriptions of the Hopkinsville Goblins. And he has all this documentation of like footprints and all this other stuff. And he said that he tracked them to an abandoned mine shaft on his property, and he feels like that's where they were coming out of. So I think that just lends further credibility to them being subterranean. If these things are matching this description, they also seem to behave very similarly too. If you ever watched that documentary, almost like not necessarily malicious, but very curious about people or what they're seeing themselves, because they've come from out from underneath wherever they live, and they're interacting with something maybe they've never seen before. So maybe they're just as curious about us as we are about them.
Yeah.
And I think that just lends further credibility to it, because you have two separate encounters that are years and years and years apart that have matching descriptions, except for this time, this guy kind of finds out where they're coming from in the Hellier documentary.
So I'm gonna throw both y'all's theories completely out the window. Number one, I think these people were very smart. I think you've got a dude who's got. Okay, first of all, the main thing that doesn't make sense to me, there's no evidence, not a footprint. They didn't take the little alien piddle. They didn't, there is.
Well, it's 1955. What are they going to do?
Let me tell my part. I listen to what you have to say. I'm going to tell you right now, there's not one damn shred of evidence. And you know what? The old boy who says, hey, Hellier, we got shit going on down here. He's heard the Hopkinsville Goblin story. He didn't trace shit. I can fake footprints. I can put this up. Come on now. Let's be real. These dudes, traveling circus, access to performers, everything, and not a shred of evidence. Let's blow a few holes in the wall to make it look good. Are you effing kidding me? Come on now, let's make some cash. Come on, mama, we're buying you some new bloomers for your birthday. Let's charge 5 cents to get in here. They took advantage of the situation. There is not a shred of evidence. Let's shoot a hole in the wall. You know what? You can go scare Meemaw. I won't shoot you, I promise. Just duck down fast. Come on now. Meemaw sees him when she's in her bed asleep. Yeah, let's go put, hey, Lucky, get your ass out there. Okay. Billy Ray's going to shoot above your head. Act like you hit, and away you go. Come on now.
But how?
Shred of evidence.
Okay, but how are you putting all of that together and then all the family is together? You're saying that they're out there being I got my hands above my head, go.
Billy Ray and old Lucky Elmer, I think that they devised this, and that's exactly why the stories would match. Now, listen, you got no proof to show otherwise, Ryan.
No, you don't have any proof either.
You don't have any proof either.
I have more proof than you do, because I'm saying it isn't real.
No, you don't. What proof do you have?
The proof is that there's no proof. That's why it's not real.
I have witness statements from fucking law enforcement. What other proof do you have?
What did law enforcement actually see? That they weren't drunk?
They weren't drunk.
You aren't drunk right now either. Proof? No, that doesn't mean you're going to see an alien tonight. Come on now.
I didn't say they were aliens.
Well, come on now, Ryan. What is your witness statement for a law enforcement officer? They weren't drunk. We went out there. Yep, there was a hole in the wall.
They went. They didn't find it. They didn't find any alcohol. They weren't drunk.
Night?
They found evidence. Yes, that night. That's the only night that matters. If they drank on Tuesday and they saw the fucking goblins on Sunday, it don't
That
matter.
don't mean that when everybody went to church, Billy Ray didn't get into the sauce and shoot a hole in the wall. Now I got to explain it to Mom. Okay, dude, here's what we're going to do because Mama's going to whip my ass. Come on now.
God damn, where's my popcorn? Go ahead.
There is not one shred of proof that these things exist. Not one.
That bioluminescent, whatever the hell it was on the grass.
Alien piddle? You said there's foxfire.
Whatever
everywhere.
it was.
Okay, but
Foxfire is completely different.
They
Foxfire
didn't
is
take a
completely
sample,
different.
So there is still no proof.
It
But
was 1955. What do they have to take a sample for? You know, what do they have to compare it against?
Well, why didn't they take a sample?
Law enforcement has come way much further than it was in
What? If there's
1955.
something green and glowing on the ground, somebody says they saw an alien, I'm going to get me a little cup or something and scrape that up. That's what law enforcement or military.
And not only that, but you also have law enforcement having previous sightings in the same area that year before it even happened.
There was a meteor shower going on. Of course he's going to see something.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the sheriff having his UFO encounter and the police city desk sergeant having his UFO encounter earlier in the year.
It was the spaceman craze. You do not think that the slightest suggestion that somebody might say, we have been outside looking and said, have y'all seen that? And somebody's like, well, yeah, I think I saw something. That... Did you really see it, or did you just think that you saw it because I suggested it to you?
No, these two officers saw something. Once again,
it's
the
Andy
50s.
And Barney Fife. Yeah, go ahead.
Once again, it's the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
Two separate officers saw two separate things at two separate times earlier in the year. It's like we were talking about. If you come forward with that sort of stuff, you're going to get laughed out of the fucking precinct. But these two officers saw these things, made reports, and had these things. They are trained observers.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing.
Anybody that told you something just because they wanted to feel special?
I don't believe the officers wanted to feel special. I believe.
You know what I've said. You know what I've seen? I've seen one of them UFOs. You know what that son bitch is big, is in the sky. I can hear this story.
What do they have to gain? They have nothing to gain. These police officers.
If it's a small town and there's three of them, well, you ain't in the club. We both seen them. You ain't seen them.
I don't think it was anything like that. I think it was like, what the hell did I just see? Let me make this police report. I don't think it was, I saw a UFO and you didn't. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think that's a completely different.
It was the spaceman craze. You can't rule out that perhaps they saw a meteor or a shooting star or something like that. And
that's what I said.
Saw something, so
what Billy Ray, that's what I said. What Billy Ray possibly could have seen could have been a meteor. But it doesn't explain the creatures that they encountered. I think that you have a bunch of people who, once again, known as no nonsense. Now, Billy Ray was on to be a little bit of a joker, but I don't know how much of a joker. But you have all these other people who were known as no nonsense, very honest people, especially Mrs. Langford. Mrs. Langford was very, very well respected in her town.
Langford was in on the joke. I think Mrs. Langford got joked.
But I don't think so, because they never sold their story. They had this happen to them. They never went to the press with their story. The press got a hold of it. And so then everybody else wanted to show up on their property. They went to the cops, told the cops, hey, we don't want these people out here. Could you please do something about these people? The cops weren't doing anything. So they were like, well, they're not adhering to our posted signs. They're not adhering to the police telling them to get off the land. They're not adhering to me going out waving my shotgun, telling them to get off the land. So fuck it. We'll charge admission so people won't want to come out here.
Ryan, you ever took a joke too far and just kind of had to stop it and be like, no, we're good. No. And you had to shut it down because you went one step too far and okay. Because if somebody starts coming in and testing your story, it's not going to hold up and it's not going to hold water. So what do? You say, no, you got to go away. No, you can't come on. Fine. Give me $10. You can walk on. You look around.
Once again.
Because there's not a footprint. There's not any alien piddle left. You can see
once again
where Elmer shot it because Elmer,
the absence of evidence doesn't make it evidence of the absence.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't make it proof that it was there either.
But what I'm saying too is you had law enforcement.
And now I'll let y'all continue.
I completely lost my train of thought now. Thanks.
That's okay. You were wrong anyway.
No, you're wrong. You are wrong with a capital W. You are wrong with a capital.
Because I really think
No.
the Hopkinsville Goblins was a fantastic hoax dream by two dudes who worked for the circus, who are moms.
They made
mad
no
that we shot a
money.
hole in the
They-
All right, so hold on, time out. Back to your damn corners. Ding, ding, ding for like 2 seconds, real quick, because y'all have got comments blowing up out the wazoo right now. Shelly, you got people who think you're part of the government cover-ups. You never know. Other points being made. They didn't have DNA evidence gathering back then. Law enforcement has changed a lot since then. Observation would have been suitable back then. This is the great goblin debate. Yes, it is. As an ex-wife of an officer, if people's stories are rock solid and never deviates in the slightest, it actually makes it seem more rehearsed. Degradation of memory is a typical human thing.
Yes, it is.
I will let y'all continue now.
What I will say
wanna hear
too,
some more
what I will
comments. Go
say
ahead.
too, hang on before, because I just remembered what I was going to say.
Wait, round two.
What I will say too is, like I said, the police are trained observers. They noticed that these people, they could tell these people were absolutely terrified by whatever else they saw. Something else I forgot to include is they actually measured on the way back. There was I can't remember if it was a paramedic or if it was one of the police officers, measured Billy Ray Taylor's heart rate because he seemed like he was the most freaked out and he had an elevated heart rate as well.
Yeah, if the cops are coming and I've been putting on a show, oh shit, yeah, my heart rate's gonna go up too because I'm about to get my ass caught.
But they went to the cops in the first place. They went to go
bet
get the
that's 'cause
cops to get
Mama
them to
wanted
come
them
back
to.
out there.
I bet that's because Mama
No,
wanted
they
them
all
to.
decided to go get the cops. They all decided to go get the cops.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Hey, you
I
know what?
think-
Y'all can think I'm part of a government conspiracy. This, I do not think it was an owl. This sounds like a fantastic prank, and just being that he had access to performers, and it checks the boxes, the metal suits, this collective, alien theory, even to the size of what they were, and the description with the long arms and the skinny bodies and the big heads.
How
That
do
is
you
the
explain?
typical alien story that has
Hold
been going
on.
around since Roswell?
How do you explain the one in the tree that got shot and floated to the ground slowly? How do you explain that one?
That's what they said. There's no proof of that.
The other people in the house saw it. Everyone saw exactly what happened. Everyone has told the same story consistently.
Again,
They saw exactly what happened.
yes, and again, to me, it sounds rehearsed.
Everyone saw it. Everyone saw what happened.
Actually, if you interview someone over time, their story actually should change. Just like how you just said, I just remembered this. Your memory should either be, you should have triggered new memories, or you might have left out a part that your memory no longer deems to be important. And I agree. The more it's said that it never changes, that is rehearsed.
Like, tell Shelly she's wrong.
ahead,
Don't be doing mama against daddy bullshit here, Ryan.
Blake's like, don't drag me into your bullshit.
Like, I am not part of round 4. No, there's a couple of things that I have issues with of how it could be a prank. Number one, I agree with actually what was just put in the comments, is this seems like so much for just a prank.
Bingo.
For not having an end result to it, not being able to have some type of gain from this. They didn't gain anything from this. They didn't gain financially, reputation. Their reputation actually tanked because of it. There wasn't any type of gain in it if it was a prank. If you're going to prank that much and then go to law enforcement and get them involved, either you're stupid and you've gone too far, or this seems a little bit more credible if you're willing to bring in police officers. Other thing is with having access to performers. Okay, they're saying that they saw multiple of these creatures that are 2.5 to 3 feet tall. I don't know about y'all and the circuses that were happening back in that day, but I don't know a whole lot. I don't know of that many little people that would be involved in a prank like this. So there's a couple of things to me that just seems like this is way too far to go just for a prank, because there are things that can't be explained when it comes to a prank. The thing floating down from the tree, the bioluminescent liquid that was left at the scene, that the family, the military and the police officers all claim that they said they saw. This family's not rich. They're not paying anybody off to say this
Mhm.
stuff. They don't have the money to be able to do so. So they're not making shit after charging people to come onto the land. So I just think that this is too much to be considered a prank.
Yeah, and why make yourself a small town pariah? You know,
That I think was an unforeseen thing that happened. I don't think that part was planned.
nope. I think too much to be a prank. I don't think it was a prank.
I agree. And the comment that was just put, someone would have told.
That's
I
what I'm saying, like,
I would almost agree with that.
There's
That if it came
11
down to
people.
it-
Do you know how hard it is to get 11 people to have the same story?
That's why I think there were only 2 people in on it. Oh, Lucky Elmer and Billy Ray. They sound like they'd pull a prank like that.
But you have to have other involvement. It's not just the 2 people that are involved. You have to have, if the police officers are in on it, then they've got to be able to hold the secret. The performers have to be able to hold the secret that you keep saying that are part of it. It's not just 2 people. It's the performers. It's the people that are involved. It's the police officers, the military personnel. How are they in on it if they're the ones who picked up on the dispatch from the police officers? They weren't even contacted. They happened to pick up the dispatch that went out over the radio. Hey, we got some creepy crap going over on at the whatever farm, so we're going to head over there, and they head over there as well. So there's just a lot of elements to it that it doesn't make sense to me of how it could be a prank.
Exactly.
I think all these years later, somebody would have said something.
Mhm.
Somebody would have told the secret. Somebody would have come forward and been like, look, I was a part of this. I don't know. It just seems way too far involved. And I don't mean this the wrong way, because I grew up on a farm as well. For simple farming folk who are just trying to make a living, to go this far into a prank like this.
Exactly. There's way too many moving parts for it to hold up as a prank. Somebody would have squealed by now, or somebody would have said something offhandedly. Somebody would have come forward at some point, and they did not gain anything from this. They, like I said, they were ridiculed because people were making fun of them for being, quote, dumb, drunk hillbillies, and they weren't. So I think clearly they encountered something they couldn't explain. What it is, I can't tell you. Is it from somewhere else? Possibly. Is it subterranean? Possibly. Could it be something that lives out in the woods? Possibly. Whatever the hell it was, I don't think that it was circus performers in costumes.
I think the fact that it matches and ticks all the boxes of the standard Roswell description of the aliens. It just too many things fit the story of the accepted ideas of what aliens and spaceships and things that look like come from. And I think that because this guy was a prankster, they did have access to performers. Now, you're assuming it's going to take 20 people. Maybe not. Maybe they made these little glowing men, and we're just like dropping them in trees. Maybe there's just 1 or 2 they helped them with. I think it is entirely possible to pull off this prank. I think it's entirely possible that they did it just to scare their family. Now, Mama's way too fucking scared, and now we got to go because Mama wants to go to the cops. So, okay, we got to go. Oh shit! Now the cops going to fight. Yeah, take my blood pressure. Yeah, I'm a little nervous.
No, see, I disagree, because I think if Mama would have been way too upset, and she'd have been like, "We got to go to the cops," and be like, "Mom, it's a prank. It's a prank. No, we're not going to involve the cops."
I think that part is too far.
No.
Going
too far. No, going too far is going to the police. They would have drawn that line right there. They would have absolutely drawn that line right there. Mama would have been pissed. Mama would have been wanting to go to the police, and they would have been like, no, just kidding. It's a prank. Look, here's Edward in his little mini costume. It's okay. We were just shooting off false shots at him. It's just a joke. That would have been the line right there. That would have gone too far.
Yeah.
I just think that with there being no evidence, none ever found. I think that's where I have to go.
Shelly.
See,
Shelly, but here's okay. By that logic, that you just had, me and you can tell people, hey, we saw a shadow figure at the end of the hallway. They didn't. There's no evidence that we saw that.
That's right.
We
They
saw
have
it
the
though,
witness.
and we know what we saw, and we can tell you exactly what we saw.
Oh, I'm not
but-
disagreeing with you on that.
But they
there
don't
is
know
no
that
evidence
because.
unless there's a picture.
But that's what I'm saying. The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence, like Blake
But
is
it
saying.
doesn't mean it was there either. See what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that it happened just because you and I both think that we saw it. Was that really what we saw? Was that, a car that went by at just the right time from just the right angle that threw just the right amount of light? We don't have it on a picture. We don't have it on a video. Just because we think we saw something doesn't mean we did.
That's what I'm saying.
Which is why you get proof.
But the thing is we can tell a story and we can just talk about like, hey, you can believe me or not, but this is what I saw. And we don't necessarily have the proof of it, but we did experience what we experienced.
That we believe that we did, right? That we believe that we did, correct?
Not that we believe, that we know that we did, because we all saw the same thing.
Perhaps not.
Brian, can I ask you something real quick?
Yes.
Jumping back to the Hopkinsville Goblins. How rich were these people? Were these people have money
They
at
were
all?
fucking poor.
Dirt poor? Okay.
Yeah.
Two comments that just popped up. Being a poor family, why would they waste that much ammo, number one, and also blow holes in their own house?
Exactly. I mean, they chances are they're probably hunting for their food. So you're wasting ammo.
We can eat alien tonight, Mama.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so you're going to waste ammo that gives you, that helps you provide for your family. Why would you just waste ammo?
But see, we're in this world, we're in this paranormal field, and we experience things over and over and over and over again and don't have proof of it. I don't have proof that I was almost drug out of bed. I don't have proof that I hear females laughing in my house and that I've seen a shadow man in my house. I don't have proof of any of that stuff because I refuse to investigate my own house. But yet it's something that's happening.
Yeah.
My partner is experiencing it. I have people who visit it. I have no proof of it. I've got one video that went off on accident that has a man that says, "I'm behind you" in it. That's the only proof that I have. Other than that, I have no proof of the stuff that's going on in my house, but it's happening. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make it any less real just because I don't have the evidence.
Exactly.
For it. And I think that's the case here. We're talking about 1955. We're talking about when things in law enforcement were in its infancy, when they didn't understand how to do the right thing, when observation was just good enough. That's all it was. And your police report was the key thing in all of these investigations. We're talking about a simpler time when there wasn't a lot of technology. There wasn't ways to be able to get this evidence and get this proof. They're not going to stop to think, oh, there's a bioluminescence puddle of piss on the ground and I need to take a sample of it so I can save it for the year 2022 when everything vaguely paranormal is, debating this.
It's 2023.
2023, whatever.
Potato.
Potato. She's losing the argument, so she's picking out words of mine. No, I'm just kidding. So I mean, it's things like that. We are talking about a time when these people, probably being a poor farming family, didn't have a telephone. There was no internet. They probably didn't have a TV. So they're not going to be as connected in the world like we are right now. They probably only get the newspaper. They probably hear gossip in town. So yeah, they probably heard rumors of these.
Didn't one of them work with the radio station?
No, that was the guy that came out to make the sketches.
Yeah.
And he worked with the radio station. Okay.
I'm sure that through the grapevine, they've heard stories. They may have read these stories of the Roswell and all that kind of stuff taking place. But I just don't see how all of that combined and the fact that they don't have evidence from it. This is way too elaborate just to be a prank. It goes too far just to be a prank. I don't think they had a means to get evidence. I don't think they knew what to do to get evidence. We're talking about 2023 now, that whenever, an alien shits bioluminescent puddle in my yard, I'm going to go in and get a fucking cup.
Document it, yeah.
And document it because I've got a camera in my hand. But we're talking about 1955 out in rural Kentucky for a family that's probably not highly educated, very simple farming individuals who aren't going to know what the hell they're even freaking looking at, let alone they're trying to defend their house that's under siege from these crazy looking little
whatever they were.
Men.
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Little creatures.
Let me say one more thing. This will be my final thought. Okay? And then
Okay,
I'll let
Jerry
y'all do
Springer.
whatever you want to. Okay? I absolutely believe that they encountered something. Because it's no fun if we all agree.
Such a damn bitch.
It is no fun if we all agree. Yes, I actually completely believe that they encountered something. Again, I'm exactly with y'all. There was too much evidence, but it's no fun if we all agree. See, they wouldn't have gotten this fun argument. They wouldn't have got to hear me and Ryan.
No, I know. really, actually good, valid points from that side of it, of how it could be a hoax and how it could be fake.
You know me. We get on the phone. I love to argue the other side just to irritate y'all.
I know you do. I know you do. But I think
you succeeded. No.
I know I did. Whenever Ryan,
I'm not being serious.
Going, no.
When Ryan's
bingo, I'm like, oh, bingo.
When Ryan's eyeball is on the camera, you know.
I was trying so hard not to laugh during that, y'all. I was trying so hard. I'm like, oh, I'm getting to Ryan. Oh, I'm really getting to Ryan. I'm like, don't laugh, Shelly. Don't laugh. You're gonna blow it. But it's no fun if we all agree. But
I agree.
I really think that they encountered something.
Yeah.
So
I mean, but that's the thing, is you do have you have to, as paranormal investigators and doing this, you do have to run through every single possibility that you can possibly fathom in your mind.
Yeah.
You have to roll everything out. And when you can't
before you go ahead. Sorry, you were just about to say
and like you were saying, and when you can't, then that's when it's unexplained, and when you can't figure out exactly what it could have been. And that's why we're still talking about it today.
Exactly. No, it's very true. I think,
and I'm having fun getting under y'all's skin.
I think had it been handled a little bit differently when it happened, in the time that it happened.
I wish they'd have got that alien piddle.
I wish.
Is everybody in the comments flipping me off now?
Yeah, pretty much. No, somebody just said, I got to pop this one on the screen. It said, oh, she lost the argument. Now she agrees with y'all. Seems fishy to me.
Actually, though, you guys can attest that when I've talked to y'all about this all the time, I've been like, oh yeah, there's definitely something in those woods.
Oh yeah.
So they can actually attest that I actually do agree with them, which is probably why they acted so shocked when I started disagreeing with them. But you go on and think you know me, buddy.
God.
Mwah, love you.
No, I think conclusion on my end, I'll just say my final thought as well, and then Ryan, you can have the final thought too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this was a prank of any kind. I don't think this was a hoax. It's way too elaborate. It's way too involved. It's got too many moving parts into it. From a very simple farming folk, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up next to those kind of people. I know what those kind of people are. So I just don't think it would have been something that they would have been successfully able to pull off. I do think that they encountered something. My belief is that it's going to be something that probably lies along the lines of the subterranean of some sorts, rather than of out of this world.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that as far as the subterranean thing goes. I also know how frustrating it is to be discounted because of the way you sound and because of where you come from.
Why? Because you sound like cornbread, Ryan?
Yeah. So I know it was very frustrating for them to be ridiculed as much as they were for seeing what they saw. And I just think that there is too much evidence to suggest that they encountered something. Like I said, what it is, I can't tell you where they came from or what they are, but it was something that you don't just see every day.
Yeah.
And these guys will tell you, I absolutely believe in aliens. I believe there's somebody out there other than us. So yeah, I believe there are Hopkinsville Goblins. So
yeah.
I absolutely
you know, and
I'm an alien freak. In fact, I love everything about aliens. So yeah. So, but if I convinced you that I thought that there were Hopkinsville Goblins, I did my job. You're welcome.
Sure. Well, y'all, you got a final thought, Ryan?
No, that was it.
I thought you were about to say, okay. Well, y'all, whatever social media channel you are watching us on, we are not just on that social media channel, so make sure you go follow us across the board. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We've got a lot of different things that are coming out exclusively to those different platforms, so make sure that you go search Everything Vaguely Paranormal and look for the green sound wave. And also don't forget to listen to us where you get your favorite podcasts, which is on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and about 19 other locations. Shelly, take it away.
And if you want to know what we really talk about, because on here we behave, oh yeah, it gets better than this. Please go and become a Patreon member. It's $5 a month. There are tiers. It's not $5, $10, $15. $5 a month gets you everything. We have over 100 and something videos. The link is scrolling at the bottom of your screen. And if you become a Patreon member, you are entered into a drawing to come and do a broadcast with us live on screen. Once you win that and you get into that drawing, you get put into another drawing to come and be part of a Patreon exclusive investigation where we provide the venue. You just got to get there. So go become a Patreon member, $5 a month. And what else do I need to know, Ryan?
Please go on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. So anytime we post anything on YouTube, you'll see what we post. Also, please tell 2 friends and have them tell 2 friends about us, and go to wherever you get your podcast and please rate and review us, because the more you do that, the more it boosts our signal, the more people can see us, and the better content we can bring you guys. Also, we have 2 Question Tuesdays every week on Patreon, where we answer 1 question in the pre-broadcast, 1 question in the post-broadcast. That damn post-broadcast, y'all asked for it. You get it. And what we say, we're not responsible for on that post-broadcast. Also, we have events that we have tickets for sale for. We have Gregg County Historical Museum. Blake, that is February the what?
We have Gregg County Historical Museum on February the 18th and the Old Park Hotel in Ballinger, Texas, April 14th through the 16th. Yes, it is a 2-night investigation. Guys, those are almost sold out on both of those locations. So if you would like to attend, we have 4 tickets left on both. That's it. So if you want to attend either one of those, you'll hear us talk about it all the time. Really great evidence. A lot of good investigations happen there. So make sure that you go and buy your tickets. We will make sure that those links get up. Also, as well, make sure that you catch us on scarenetwork.tv, where you can watch our documentary that's already up, Yorktown documentary, and we have another one that's coming out over the Old Park Hotel on scarenetwork.tv. So go and check them out as well on Roku TVs.
We've got proof on camera.
She's freaking interrupting my sign off. Damn. Trying to tell him where to go find scarenetwork.tv. Anyways, on Roku and also on your Amazon Fire Sticks. So, and with that being said, for myself, my name is Blake Smith. My partners in the paranormal, as always, Miss Shelley Pruitt and Mr. Ryan Roberts. And a huge shout out to our brand new producer, Brittany. Thank you so much. We know you're in the green room, but we see you back there.
Boy,
people can't see Brittany. Does that mean Brittany exists?
And with that, we thank y'all for joining.
You saw her at the beginning.
We thank y'all for joining us so much for another episode of Everything Vaguely Paranormal. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday.